Welcome to Zinnov Podcast, where we bring you conversations with eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they share insights on shaping the future of enterprise growth, AI, innovation, transformation, and more.
Everything starts with what is your company vision and strategy. Then you take it from there to a policy, and then you define it for your ecosystem. You cannot fight AI with people. You need to fight AI with AI. And you need to ensure when you're deploying AI, you've thought about AI security. I always like to take the approach, look at it from the customer and back, because at the end of the day, the ecosystem will adjust if the customer is ready. So again, I think the customer is starting to realize, I need to evolve. That means you need to define those outcomes early on. And it's a lot easier if you have a platform approach.
But when we look at the cybersecurity, the complexity, the integration, and the solution itself, how do you see the marketplace is going to play a role? And at that time, how the ecosystem would support that journey?
One of our fastest route to market is the cloud service providers. And I look at MSSP as right there as well. So both of these route to markets are growing at an amazing rate because let's face it, I mean, this is how customer want to purchase. If a customer wants to consume it through the marketplace, we're here, we're ready, we have it. And if they want to consume it through traditional way, we have it as well.
Hi everyone, this is Zinnov Business Resilience Podcast Series, and I'm Rajat Kohli, working in the capacity of partner with Zinnov Consulting. Today I'm going to focus on a very interesting topic, which is from point products to the platform solutions, and looking at it from a lens from the partnership or the ecosystem. And for this, today we have Michael Khoury, Vice President, Ecosystem Global Partners. Welcome, Michael, to this interesting podcast.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm super excited about this discussion today. I'm sure we'll uncover some interesting aspects at how we are looking at the platform story going forward. Before we get into that, it'll be good to get your introduction. How's been your journey in this ecosystem?
Okay, well, obviously I'm with Palo Alto Networks. Joined the company about a little over a year ago. And prior to that, I was at ServiceNow, and prior to that at Cisco for a long time. I've been in this industry for over 3 decades. I'll admit to 3 decades, okay? And during that time, I spent a good part of my career in sales. So I've worked with partners on the front end around opportunities and deals and things like that. And the last, I would say, 18 to 20 years, I've been around programs, partner strategy, policies, enabling our partners to scale and grow with us. So that's a little bit about myself and my career.
That's interesting. And looking at your exciting journey, like you mentioned the Cisco, which was known for the network and the hardware. Then the ServiceNow, which is more on the IT service management and creating that customer 360 degree. And now into the security or the cybersecurity world. How has been that story? And looking at that 3 decades of the experience, like I'm sure that in the first decade, it was more on selling those products, the point solutions, but the story has transformed. It has evolved.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because even when I look at my sales career, I've worked with commercial customers, I've worked with enterprise customers, and at some point in my career, I was selling into telco service providers, which is a very different sales cycle from really when you're dealing in the commercial segment or even SMB. So even throughout my sales career, I've had a different level of customer interactions. And then moving to the ecosystem, it became more really around execution of our strategy through our ecosystem. You know, you hear a lot sometimes vendor says to the partner, to the ecosystem, you're an extension of our sales team. Or you hear a lot about we're a partner first company. And that is true. That is true because in order for any vendor to be able to execute through the partners and the ecosystem, you have to ensure whatever you give to your field sales team, you have to ensure that your ecosystem have access to the same playbook, to the same information, same capability. And a lot of times vendors forget that in order for that ecosystem to execute, you need to think of them, first of all, they're separate businesses. They have separate processes, separate vehicles to enable these processes. So it's important for a vendor when they're working with an ecosystem, how do you enable them? How do you make it easier for them to do business with us? Because let's face it, if I start thinking of our partners, in general, some of our partners, if I start with the traditional VARs, they work with many vendors. Yes, we are in the top 10 of the vendors, but they still have 9 other vendors they work with. And in some cases, even in that top 10, they may be working with 100 vendors. So it's important for a vendor, from my perspective, to ensure we remove these barriers and we make it a little bit easier, just the ability to work with us. And I think sometimes that's forgotten. Sometimes people just go directly into, hey, my product, here's what we can do, and here's how the sales play, and all. That's all important. But at the same time, the ability to transact, the ability to manage opportunities, to track, to report on things, all that's important. So I think that's what I would say to any company who's looking at an ecosystem. Don't forget that piece in the middle. Yes, the sales is important, the product is important. For us, having a great product that our ecosystem believes in and is willing to take to market is awesome. But at the same time, we need to continue to break those barriers and make it easier for them to work with us.
Interesting. Is it easy to solve those barriers?
I think they require more commitment and more investments from the beginning, and it's a journey. I frankly look at it as you cannot decide overnight that you're going to go through an ecosystem and overnight you're going to be able to build the right processes, the right systems, the right tools, the policy. So it's like you have so many steps you have to define before you make it easy. Everything starts with what is your company vision and strategy. Then you take it from there to a policy. So you clearly define it for your own team, for your own sales organization, your own field organization, and then you define it for your ecosystem. And then from a policy, then you define the process. And then you build the systems and the tools. And sometimes, a lot of times, people jump into the tools and the system. Oh, the tool is difficult, doesn't do that. Well, if you talk to any IT organization, they'll be like, I'll build whatever you want. You just need to tell me what is your policy and what process you want me to enable. So a lot of times, sometimes folks forget about that policy, the process, and then the systems. So that's how I like to look at it. And overall, if you think about making progress an evolutionary step, don't surprise your ecosystem. The one advice I give to anyone, don't surprise your ecosystem. Don't make a change that you're going to expect them to pivot and react on overnight, because frankly, they have, as I said, many other companies they work with, and they have their own processes, and some of them are big companies. So they need time to adjust and pivot and react. So don't assume just because you brought a new widget to the market, or you brought a new program, or you brought a new something, that they're going to turn overnight and be able to execute on it. You need to ensure you have the right time and you have the right capability for them, and you need to allow them to be enabled to really to be able to execute. So that's the one advice I would give to anyone who wants to work through an ecosystem.
That's a great point, Michael. And in this world, the ecosystem, it's not only the change in the partner program. It's dependent on how we are coming up with a new product or the need of the customers. Looking at as we're looking at the products to the platforms. When we're introducing a new product, everything is around that. The ecosystem works around that. Are we introducing a new playbook? Are we introducing a new partner program? Are we adding more partners to that? What is our marketing messaging around that? All that needs to be changed. Now, looking at the last, I would say the 24 or 36 months, there's a lot of transformation taking place in the ecosystem from the technology, from a workload, and that's why we are saying it's moving from the point solution to the platform story. Is the ecosystem ready to cater to that transformation or the change that is happening from the point solution to the platform? And how much time do they need to understand, aware of what are the changes, and how then they can take it to the end customer?
Yeah, so I'm going to say, let's start with the platform. I would say a little over 2 years ago, our CEO, Nikesh, said a word called platformization. And I think after Nikesh brought up the word platformization, everyone, all of a sudden, 6 months later, everyone is talking about a platform. And I think when you look at it, the reason why we started talking about platformization and overall of a platform play, it's because you can't anymore just say, oh, I'm going to bring the best of breed of this product and that product and this other product and stitch it together, which was the traditional model. And look, our GSIs, God bless them, they made a lot of money stitching all these complex things together. But if you talk to a customer, at the end of the day, they want outcome. They don't care about having all these disparate products. Sometimes they may have products, especially when it comes to cybersecurity or security in general, they may have products from like 20, 30 different companies. And it's almost impossible to get the best out of all of these and stitch them together and be seamless and then be able to operate and deliver an outcome out of so many different products. So really the whole idea of a platform is how can you leverage across your entire network, whether you're doing network security, whether you're doing endpoint security, whether you're doing cloud, and even now as you're leveraging more AI, how do you design something for AI security to ensure these AI agents are actually doing the right thing and to ensure the attacks you're getting are actually coming from AI as well. So the whole world has moved from point product, because if you think about the concept of AI, you're looking at data. In order for AI to really be effective, it's all about data. And if you think of data, you're looking at data across your entire network. So everything you're deploying and has to have some data element, and how are you securing that across your network security, your endpoint, your SOC. I mean, in the old days, when you had a managing of a security operations center, that's what we call a SOC, right? In the old days, you had a lot of people, a lot of analysts had to manage a SOC. Now, once you're attacked, they can extract your data and they can act on it in minutes because of AI. So in a way, you cannot fight AI with people. You need to fight AI with AI. And you need to ensure when you're deploying AI, you've thought about AI security. So that's why it became so complex to continue to have multiple this point product. And that's why we evolved into a platform story. And that's why the customers ultimately, they're going to get that value realization from their security needs by having a platform approach versus many different point products from different vendors.
It's an interesting thought, Michael, and there are two questions that comes to my mind. One is the AI data models. Is the right trigger to introduce a platform story?
Well, in order for AI to do better, think about it. If you go to whether ChatGPT or Gemini and you create a gem, let's say, if you just ask a general question out of that gem, it's just going to give you general information, what's available out there in the public. Now, and I tested that. I'll tell you in a little bit how I tested it. But if you feed it information and then you ask it and you go with your prompt and you be more specific, all of a sudden now that AI gets better. So basically, the more data you give it, the better it gets. And I tested that in our own world, in my own basically role as a leader of a partner program. We had the team do all the analysis, do all the data, the analytics, what do we need to do with our programs. And then after we did all of that and they came back with their recommendation, I wanted to know, was our recommendation sound? And then I took it to Gem in Gemini. I uploaded some of the information and I basically asked Gem to tell me, is that the right strategy? And it's interesting. And that was only like about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And it came back almost with about 85% accuracy. There were some things I'm not going to do because Gemini didn't think about these other elements of what I said earlier. Don't surprise your ecosystem. Don't ask them to move very quickly. Make sure they have enough time to react. So all these things Gemini didn't consider, but I did consider from experience. Okay. So obviously, but a lot of the points that we did from our teams and all the analysis they did, about 80% accuracy, I would say that's pretty good. But I had to feed it the information. So to answer your question, data is important. Without data, AI cannot help. And that's why the platform story resonates, because think about all these agents. If each, so let's go back to the customer who has products from 20 or 30 vendors. Let's assume for a minute, each one of them has an AI story, but they have an AI story within their own platform or within their own product. In order to really leverage fully AI, all these different systems and these different solutions from different companies, you need it end to end. And that's where AI becomes efficient.
To that, definitely the way forward is a platform story. And I would not say that it's an end-to-the-point solutions. If you look at the customer personas, what kind of a customer persona is still looking at the point solutions? And which are the persona which are super excited about the platform and ready to invest in that? Do you see that differentiation in that?
Yeah, I think a little bit from a different lens, because it depends on the customer and depends on the segment. So let's talk a little bit about the commercial segment versus the strategic, the bigger accounts, the enterprise.
Bigger like the Fortunes.
Yes, exactly. So if you think about a commercial segment, most of these customers are smaller. They don't have all the, resources, the team members to really deal with 30 different companies from 30 different sources and having to manage all the updates and everything that's needed. So those companies also are starting to look at a managed service. Because frankly, the complexity is so much that they can't wrap their head around all the different thinking that they need to do. Because now, when you're thinking about AI, you're thinking about cloud, you're thinking about applications. Even when you're accessing your applications on Google Cloud or on AWS or Microsoft Azure, all these applications, you need to have security also. You need to have runtime security when you're dealing from a cloud perspective. Same thing with AI. Now you need to think securing AI on top of it. And then you have your network security. You have your cloud security. You have your SOC transformation, your endpoint security. You have even browser. From Palo Alto today, you can get a Prisma browser, which allows you to browse without worrying about, did I click on that wrong link? Because that browser is going to take care of that security for you. So really the whole idea of security is about leveraging the end-to-end, and that's where the platform excels. But those customers in the commercial segment, they're overwhelmed. They can't deal with all of that, and that's why we're seeing a huge growth in managed security or MSSP, managed security service providers, from that lens. And then when you look at the bigger companies, the major, the strategic, the big enterprise, they look at it and say, I'm more about outcome. I'm more about realizing value. I don't care if it's from 20, 30 different company. And then they turn around, look at the SIs, the global SIs, where before these global SIs used to stitch that together and tell these global companies, I'll manage it for you, but that's expensive. That's even becoming expensive even on these global SI, because the customer is not going to pay for that complexity. The customer wants outcome and wants outcome at a better price. So even the bigger SIs who work with these accounts on transformation type innovation, they're also embracing a platform story. So when you look at it from both ends, whether you're a global SI or whether you're a smaller commercial customer who's willing to go from a managed security, and those tend to be sometimes better serviced through the telco's service provider, because remember, if you go back to the days, they all need connectivity, right? So the telco comes in with their connectivity story, but then who's going to manage your security as a customer? So again, there are plays for our service providers, there are plays for our managed service provider or managed security service providers, and then there are room for our global SI with the bigger transformation type accounts.
So to that, a very simple question, are the partners ready for that platform story?
I would say when I look at our ecosystem, we have our partners trained, we have them enabled, and I think now the customers is starting to do that migration, because the customer today is looking at their own network and they're looking at their own vendors and they're saying, I cannot continue with point product solution. So it's really, I always like to take the approach to look at it from the customer and back, because at the end of the day, the ecosystem will adjust if the customer is ready. And the customer is starting to say, I cannot manage all that complexity by myself. And if I go to a global SI to manage it for me, they're charging me a lot of money as well to manage it. So again, I think the customer is starting to realize, I need to evolve, I need to move to something where it's all about outcome. And if you think about outcome and the customer realizing value, that means you need to define those outcomes early on. And it's very difficult to define outcomes with 30 different companies. But it's a lot easier if you have a platform approach and say, ultimately, I'm not in the security business. As a customer, I do what I do and do it well. Well, I need you to take care of that. And these are the outcome we're going to agree on that I need to get out of this before even I make the purchase. So think of it like more like a business value discussion before even the customer is willing to commit. And that's why I feel like now customers are realizing, because they all have AI plans. And if you have AI plan, you cannot deploy AI even to your customer without thinking of security. Because that same AI you need that AI agent that you're deploying. That AI agent needs to act on your behalf, needs to act in a secure way. And also you need to be prepared to protect yourself from being hacked by AI. So you need it both ways. And that's why the AI story and that's why the platform story resonates so much more today with customers, small and big, versus maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So yes, it's going to take a little bit of time for everyone to really move away from 30 vendors to maybe one, but they're on their way. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it every quarter. We're seeing every quarter's customers embrace more that platform story, embrace more from Palo Alto. And look, for the ones who are not ready, I would say, if you allow us to show you the advantage of managing, let's say, your SOC. Because in our SOC solution, you don't need to move everything to Palo Alto. You can stay with these other companies. But at least from a SOC perspective, now we can touch every threat that comes at you, and we can react to it as a beginning point. So we can start, whether you want to start with a SOC or you want to start just with the endpoint. That's okay too. So we're not asking our customers to overnight overhaul everything, but at least we have the story for them. We have that platform to show them when you're ready. If you're ready today, we are ready for you today. And if you're ready in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, we will be here as well. So we're giving our customer a choice to platformize, if that's, let's say, a term, and I'm going to say it is because Nikesh said platformization. So I'm going to say what our CEO said. We are giving them a journey to platformize with Palo Alto and really migrate over time. Now, obviously, we want it to start immediately, but we know some of them are going to be ready in 6 months, some in 12 months, and some already have done that shift and are already committed to that story.
It's a fantastic story, Michael. But if I look at from an ecosystem or the partners, with what ask they're coming to you to sell that platform story? I'm sure it's not an easy journey. There are like some friction points, some ups and downs. What are those asks that the partners are coming to you?
If I think of our ecosystem, primarily they're saying, allow me to be enabled, allow me to do it with you. For example, when I talked about SOC transformation, part of our enablement story today is not just training and certification. In order for that partner to be ready, we make sure they're actually doing code delivery with us. Meaning, you are doing a code delivery on an opportunity at a customer for a SOC, and we're showing you how to do it. So basically, the ecosystem is asking us, and we're expecting them also to do it with us before we fully say this partner is authorized. So it's no longer like, oh, get the certification, do the test, now you're an engineer, you're right. That's not enough. We are finding that's not enough because you need lab experience, you need hands-on keyboard experience, you need actual customer experience to actually be doing that along with us. And that's where we're finding, and that's where we're seeing some of our ecosystem is already passed that step and have done it, and others are in the process of doing it.
What are the other asks that partners are coming to you? See, even to do that, the code delivery, that's an interesting point that you mentioned, that let's execute a couple of projects together. So that you're ready, so that you can do the delivery on your own.
Exactly.
That's one important aspect. Are we also looking at some similar asks that they're bringing to you?
Make things easier for the ecosystem. So there is always that. How do we make things easier? How do we make things less friction? How do we ensure our field team and their field team? How do we put joint business plan? Just go back to the basic. How do we do joint business plan on which accounts to ensure our field team and their field team? So there is the friction in the field that you need to ensure you work through it. And you work through it through these joint teaming agreements, through these joint business plans together. But also, I would say, beyond the field and the friction, we as a vendor need to make sure we're easier for our partners to work with. I'll give you an example. Today, I was at an EBC, I told you. I was at an EBC today with one of our key partners, and they asked me, they're like, Michael, will I have visibility to this? And the first answer is absolutely yes. Because today, you cannot, as a vendor, I cannot launch a new partner program and expect my partners to commit to all these certification requirements, specialization requirements, and all of this without giving them full visibility into that dashboard. So today, I don't do any launches without ensuring that full visibility and the ease of transparency is there from day one, because that's what they want.
See, I think so the visibility, the ease of transparency are important, but the ease to deliver, ease to execute, I think so that's very important in the ecosystem, and especially when you're working with hundreds and thousands of the partners.
And this is why I tell you today, you said, and I didn't want to change what you said. You said, let's do a couple of code delivery together. Actually, at Palo Alto, we expect you to do 2 code delivery, and then we expect you to do what we call 2 delivery assurance. Meaning, under 2 code delivery, we are the one more guiding you and leading, and you're working with us. On the other 2, you're leading, and we're observing and supervising and kind of shadowing and give you input. So actually, we took it to the next level, because in order for that customer to realize the value of what they purchased, they need to be not just deployed, they need to be successfully deployed, which means they need to be able to leverage the full benefit of that cybersecurity solution. And obviously, when they're successfully deployed, that means they've adopted what they purchase, and then the consumption part, of course, is going to come in. Because from a cybersecurity perspective, immediately you're going to start dealing with the attacks, and you need to know what to do. So that piece of it comes naturally. Obviously, when you look at it from a hyperscaler, it's a little bit different, because deployment is one step, but then they're going to look at the consumption and the usage as a next thing. In cybersecurity, it starts once you're deployed successfully, because now you're dealing with attacks, and you need to know what to do.
Now, if you look at, I think so in between you mentioned about 30 different solutions are running at the customer end. And when so many customer solutions are running at the customer end, there's an industry play as well, because it's not only coming under the CIO or the CISO, it's by the line of businesses also.
Yes.
Now, to solve for that and to deploy that platform story, are the partners or the ecosystem ready for that industry playbook?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, as long as we ensure they come on that journey with us, as long as we ensure they're trained, they're enabled, they have the right resources, they have our playbook, they're working with our engineers on these deliveries. So yes, I would say the ecosystem, some are more advanced than others. I'm not going to tell you that every one of my partners today, I can say, oh yeah, they're authorized on my SOC transformation with XIM. No. But will I tell you I have hundreds of them gone and I have thousands of people now getting training? Yes. But not every partner is there yet. So of course, we look at our partners and say, okay, maybe on SASE, I have these partners that are ready. And on XIM, maybe I have those other ones are more ready than these. And sometimes, yes, I have more partners already on XIM and SASE together, but that's part of how we ensure when we're working with partners, which partners and which accounts, which customer segment is more appropriate to do that deployment. So all of that comes into play, and it's a journey. Of course, some are going to be more advanced than others, but that's part of the exciting part about the ecosystem is you can work with all of them, and you can ensure here's the training, here's the access to our labs, here's access to our demo, here's access to all of this to ensure you are ready as an ecosystem, but you have to make the commitment.
The commitment is one, I think. So you touch upon two words, advanced partners. It's very important. It should come from the partner side also, from an ecosystem. What is this? What is the characteristic or the persona of these advanced partners that others can learn?
Okay, I'm gonna give you one little clue. In our managed services program, we have something called we have specialization, but we also have advanced specialization. And in order to get to that higher tier, you need to have minimum 3 of our products that you need to have advanced specialization in. So basically, in our new program for our partners, we are very prescriptive, very specific. We tell them, this is the competency, this is what you need to invest, this is the capacity, this is how many minimum number of people need to be certified on this product, and this is how many business consultants you need to have. This is how many architects you need to have. This is how many engineers you need to have to deploy. And this is how many minimum analysts you need to have for support. So we are very specific, very prescriptive for each product. So our partnerships, I can tell you very easily on which product, which one of my partners are advanced and which ones are ready to tackle XIM, XDR, SASE, and the rest of, and cloud security and Prisma Airs. So product by product, I can go down the list and I can see which ones have 3 or more, which ones have 4 or 5 or more. And that's how I can tell you which ones are more advanced versus which ones are not, and which ones, and even our own sales team, they know this because they look at these partnerships. Not just they work with them, of course, relationship and all of that, but they can look at each partnerships and know how many deployments they've done, how many engineers they have, how many certification they have. And frankly, that's something I look at as well with every conversation that I have with a partner. I want to know from an enablement perspective, how committed are they? Because everybody jumps to the numbers and the ACV and the ARR and all of that. That's important. But I want to look at it before that. I want to look at a leading indicator metric, which is really your commitment as a partner to us. And in return, we're gonna be committed to you. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, that's interesting. But if you look at from a way forward, there's a lot of discussion around the marketplace as a future
Yes.
buying platform
Yes.
for the technology.
Yes.
But when we look at the cybersecurity, the complexity, the integration, and the solution itself, how do you see the marketplace is going to play a role? And at that time, how the ecosystem would support that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you one of our fastest route to market is the cloud service providers. When I look at our growth through Google Cloud and AWS and Microsoft Azure, it's like extremely one of the fastest. And I look at MSSP as right there as well. Okay. So both of these route to markets are growing at an amazing rate because let's face it, I mean, this is how customer want to purchase. And for us, it doesn't matter. Now, obviously, if there is a hardware element, they need our hardware, but that's only on our hardware firewall. Right. Because the rest of our product are all SaaS products as well that are running in the cloud, that they can leverage our solution through the Google Cloud, and they can consume and buy also through GCP, through AWS. So there is no issue for us because that is a fast growing route to market. At the end of the day, it's a customer decision. If a customer wants to consume it through the marketplace, we're here, we're ready, we have it. And if they want to consume it through traditional way, we have it as well.
Sure, no, this is super exciting. I think so. It's a fantastic journey, Michael, and how you covered at the ecosystem, which is not only the resellers or the SIs or the MSPs, or the entire ecosystem, including the different ISVs and the cloud hyperscalers are playing its important role in that.
Absolutely.
journey.
We have hundreds of partners in our ISVs who are actually building integrations, building offerings with Palo Alto on Palo Alto. So it's really exciting, and it's going to continue. So that's why the ecosystem continues to be exciting, continues to evolve, and frankly, even interestingly, like when I think of distributor, which were the traditional, people think of distributor as a legacy. Today, I have distributors who do support. I have distributors who do delivery, part of their services. So it has evolved from the traditional, oh yeah, you're a distributor, you're shipping a hardware box. No, that's not the case. Yes, that's one of the services they do, of course. If there is a hardware box, they will ship it. But they have many other services they're doing, which honestly, 10 years ago, I would not have imagined that. I literally, and look, I've worked with those guys for a long time. I've been in this industry for a long time. I would not have said that, what I just said, 7 or 8 years ago.
But the story has changed, definitely.
Yes.
We have seen a lot of transformation. But I think that this is an interesting and fantastic discussion. Thank you for putting a color on the product to the platform story and what are the different skill sets needed from the ecosystem to make it happen.
Oh,
I'm sure that audience will keep listening to the quarterly results and how you're building that ecosystem story. So super excited about that. But thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael.
Great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.